Welcome to this episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. I am your host, founder, and executive director of Voices for Voices, Justin Allen Hayes. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your support here in the States and across the world. If you can give us a big thumbs up, if you can subscribe, that would be wonderful. Help us continue towards that goal of helping 3 billion people over the course of my lifetime and beyond. We have surpassed, obviously you can see the 200 episode milestone, which is awesome, and we're going to hit 300 as a total of in-studio and remote episodes for by the end of 2025. So very excited for that, and if nobody was watching or listening, I wouldn't probably be doing this, so really a big thank you to everybody, whether this is your first episode you're tuning in or you've watched all 200 plus at the point this is airing and becoming live. Very excited to have our guest in studio. She's a friend of my sister's, and so that's kind of like the part of the connection. But then the other connection is what we also try to talk about on our show is, the career aspect, the getting ready for college, just all those things that come up, and our guest is in that space, and so she is a big proponent and a big pillar and a foundation for a lot of school children here in the area, and she may have clients at other areas outside of Northeast Ohio. So without further ado, I want to introduce Kristina Dooley, CEP, which means Certified Educational Planner, to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. So we can just get started on, how did you get interested in the work that you do? Somebody might have those same interests, and they might say, oh yeah, that sounds like something I like. I might look at some work like this.
That's a good question. So when I was, I'll back up just a little bit and just talk about my own path to education in general. So I was a first generation college student. I went to college at Hiram College here in Ohio. And when I was in college, I changed my major from what I think it's about 70% of students change their major from what they put on their application to what they actually end up doing. But I was one of those people. I thought I was going to study biology and then maybe go on to medical school. I really didn't know, because as a first generation student, I wasn't really sure how you even got to do those things. And when I got to college, I realized that I really loved the communication classes I was taking. I loved my sociology classes. I loved learning about people, which I still do, actually. And so I ended up double majoring in communication and sociology, and wasn't quite sure what that meant in terms of a career, what I wanted to do beyond that. I had some internships throughout my time as an undergrad, and thought that maybe I would go into something in journalism, public relations. So when I graduated from Hiram, I ended up working in the admission office there, which a lot of people do. If you're a tour guide, it's kind of a natural pathway. If you're looking for a job, oftentimes there's openings in the admission office. And so I thought, well, I purchased this product already. I think I'd be pretty good at selling it. And so I worked in the admission office there while I was going to graduate school at Kent State. And I was going to the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Kent. And again, thought, I'm going to go into public relations or journalism or something like that. But what I realized while I was working in the admission office at Hiram was that I actually really loved working with teenagers, which my husband would say, like, who likes working with teenagers, right? Yeah. But I find that time in someone's life is so pivotal. I mean, there's so many decisions that have to be made, and I mean, the reality is most of those students, their brains aren't even fully developed yet, so True. There's a lot of big choices that they have to make, and I loved it. I loved being part of that. Even if they didn't end up coming to Hiram, I liked helping them figure out what kinds of colleges might be good for them. And I met people who worked as independent educational consultants, which is what I do now. And I would meet these people at professional conferences, and they would tell me about their job, which was basically helping guide students to the right fit colleges based on a lot of different factors. And I used to think to myself, when I grow up, that's what I want to do. And so, so I worked at Hiram for a bit, but then I left and I went to Andrews Osborne Academy, which is in Willoughby, Ohio, and it's a boarding school. And so I was the director of admission there. I was also one of the school counselors for a little bit of time. And so I got to work with the students there, helping them navigate the college search. And again, still kind of had this dream in my mind that I wanted to be an independent educational consultant and help kids all over the place with this process. And so in 2008, my husband's job actually relocated us to São Paulo, Brazil. So the name of my business is Estrela Consulting, and Estrela is the Portuguese word for star. And as opposed to Estrella, the Spanish with two L's, mine's with one L. And I essentially, when we moved to São Paulo, Brazil, I started working with families that were expat families, Brazilian families that were navigating both the boarding school search process as well as the college search process. So that's kind of where the foundings of my work in this space came from. And I still like teenagers, actually. I mean, I still every year I get to work with a new batch of students, and I'm really fortunate that since I started Estrela back in 2008, we've grown, and now we actually have, there are actually 5 of us, 5 consultants, and then we have another client experience manager who works with me. I have a great team, and we all really love the process with the students. And there's a lot of, I'm sure we're going to get into this, but there's a lot going on for those kids, during this, like I said, really transformational time for them.
So getting started kind of like as an entrepreneur, that could be looked at a little bit scary of how do I get started? Who do I talk to? When you were in Brazil, and even before, how did you navigate to even get to the point that obviously you have the name of the Estrela Consulting, but get to the point of you're getting clients and how you navigate that, because I think communication is huge. We're all using our phones, and so I'm sure over the years things have changed, or maybe not.
No, and it's true. I think for me, one of the things that was very natural when I first started Estrela was that I am absolutely a person who likes to engage with people. And so I really just dove right in networking in São Paulo. I got involved in a lot of the types of organizations they have there for international families. There was an American Society of São Paulo and International Newcomers Club. And so I joined all those things, and I would basically go and I would tell them, this is my background, and now I'm wanting to do this with students. And as I think a lot of entrepreneurs hope for, someone took a chance. Someone said, sure, I would love for you to help my student. And then from there, it just kind of, my referral sources grew and grew and grew, because I had families that were happy with the outcomes and students that were happy with the outcomes. And so people would then refer other families to me. And over the years, we just had a meeting on Monday with some of our rising senior parents, and I was sharing with them that right now about 80% of our clients are referrals from other families, from educators. We have teachers that will refer families to us. We have school counselors that will refer to us, other independent consultants like me who maybe don't have capacity or they feel like they're not the right fit, they'll refer families to us. So we get a lot of families that way. And this past year, actually, more than a third of our students that we worked with were siblings. So once a family works with us, again, we tend to, and I'll say this because I'm really proud of my team. We develop really strong relationships with the families. It's not transactional. It's very much that we're getting in. It's a big part of their whole life. So getting involved in this process where they trust us to help their student enough, we really get ingrained with those families. And so we have some families where we have the third, fourth sibling in the family that's working with us, and we love that. We love repeat customers in that way.
And to talk about somebody gave you a chance, and I think a big thing for viewers and listeners and even us, that the answer is always going to be no if we don't ask. And so you asked and asked and asked, and then it probably didn't happen overnight.
Right.
And I think that's a thing. We don't want to give up after, like, oh, wow, they weren't interested.
Right.
Or maybe it takes 2 or 3 times to connect with people. And those are things they don't really teach a whole lot of. Maybe now they might teach a little bit more in college and in school.
Yeah.
But it again, like I've heard the term, the answer is always no if you don't ask, and you miss all the shots that you don't take, and all those types of cliches.
It's true.
So yeah, being a go-getter is, I think, imperative for entrepreneurs and the work. And you also spent some time, and you may be still part of it, I'm not quite sure, State of Mind Hudson. So from like the mental health side, you, even outside of State of Mind Hudson, like you mentioned, there's a lot going on with the kids and what they're dealing with. And so you, I'd say, made a little bit of a diversifying kind of your portfolio of things that you do into that. Can you share just a little bit about that? And because that was, I think, it's a big passion.
Absolutely. So State of Mind Hudson was a project of Leadership Hudson. So I was in the class of 2019 in Leadership Hudson, and each year the Leadership Hudson class decides on a project that they want to put together that will somehow improve the community that we're in. And the way that you do that is through the course of the program, which is almost a year long. You visit different places in town, in our community here in Hudson. And the day that was transformational for us in terms of deciding that we wanted to do something in mental health was, they call it the Schools Day. And basically our group of 13 in the Leadership Hudson class that year, we visited a couple of the local schools, elementary schools all the way up to high school, and we got to meet with students and administrators and teachers. And to a school, it didn't matter which school it was, whether it was a private school, public school, Catholic school, the students in all of those schools, one of the things that was very clear was they said, we love this community, we love our school, but boy, are we stressed. This is very competitive. There's a lot of pressure on us to be successful in the classroom, on the field, on the stage, whatever that is. And so the 13 of us at the end of that day went back to town hall here in Hudson, and we sat around a table, and we basically all agreed in that moment that whatever our project would be, it would be focused on mental health. And so that was how State of Mind Hudson was born. And I'm still involved. I'm still on the board. I'm a founding member. I'm still on the board of, I'm past president of it. And I'm still really passionate about it because I work with students in Hudson, but I also work with kids all over the country and internationally as well. And I have my own kids. And it is really hard to see the pressure that kids are under to be the best in every way and to not feel like they're enough. And for me, I feel like that's something that it's a hard thing for parents, I think, because I work with them in my professional life, it's a hard thing for parents to not want their kids to shoot for the stars, to be, to have their name in lights, to have an Ivy League education. But at what cost, And I just had a conversation with one of my colleagues this morning about this, about, what are you sacrificing when you do those things? And oftentimes that is your mental health. And so it's so yes, I'm very passionate about the mental health, especially when it comes to young people, for sure.
So the work that you do, the different, because I'll let you talk about like the different types of projects, like what a day in the life of Kristina is like, and the conversations and the curriculum and how you kind of work through that. So if somebody, which I think there's going to be more than just somebody watching or listening that may want to reach out, learn more about, okay, so what's the nuts and bolts of it?
So the way that we work with families, we have processes in place and, kind of like a curriculum that we go through with each class. One of the most common questions we get at Estrela is when do we have to start working with you? Like, when's the ideal time to start this process? The earliest that families can work with us, we do have an 8th and 9th grade early start program, and that's less geared towards let's put a list of colleges together and go visit. It's more about looking at the students' interests and aptitudes. What are the things they like? And then talking about careers. What are the things that might align to some of those things that bring you joy and that you're good at? And so we have those conversations with them. We also talk with them about scheduling in high school, which has become something, back when we were in high school, I don't remember really putting much thought into my high school course schedule until maybe the week that we were doing it. Now, kids are having to plan years in advance what their high school schedule will be like, especially if they want to go into something like engineering, nursing, computer science, something that's very math or science-based. They really have to be on a specific trajectory to get up to, like, calculus, for example. So that's where those 8th and 9th grade families, we're working with them on that. But most of our families for college consulting or college planning will work with us beginning in sophomore year, sometimes early junior year, and we help them with everything from identifying right fit colleges, and we usually use like 3 main things: academic, social, and financial. So it can be the best fit for a family with academics and social, but if you can't afford it, then it's not going to be the right fit. So that's a big part of what we do as well. And then the social piece is incredibly important with students, more so than I think they understand, because right now, in U.S. colleges at least, 1 out of every 3 students will transfer from their first college. So there's a lot of kids ending up places where it's not the right fit for them. And there's a survey that's done of college students nationwide that's called the National Survey of Student Engagement. And on that survey, one of the questions is, if you've transferred, why, what would the reasons why? And the highest number of reasons all around are basically around social. This was not the right fit for me socially. This is not, doesn't feel right. It's too big. All those kinds of things. And so when we're helping families, we're really helping the student identify, like, where are you going to find your place? And then obviously academics. That's probably the easiest one to assess, because you can find lists of majors and what they offer. The other 2 are a little bit more complicated. So we do help families kind of guide them through those things. And again, the affordability piece is there. One of the things that's interesting is in the media, there are people who, I would say, they use the same kinds of professional titles as we use, but they are not doing the same things. They're doing things very unethically. We're all members of the Independent Educational Consultants Association, which is basically our professional association. We sign an ethics code annually. We do things very much on the up and up. The work is always the students' work. We're there to guide them. They're driving and we're in the passenger seat, and we're helping them with all of those steps that are involved with applying to college. And then essentially we work with them through the application process and all the way through the end of senior year, getting them launched. And we're really proud of a lot of our students. We never get rid of them. They still keep in touch with us and keep us posted on how college is going. It's great for us to know, like, was it a great match? And nearly all of our students stay where they land, and that's what we want in the end. So so that's kind of like the gist of what we do. But families can basically hire us or engage our services for different kinds of things. We have an essay writing package, for example, where we help the student with brainstorming ideas for essays. We have an aptitudes and careers assessments package. So there's some other, like, smaller options as well. Yeah.
Wow, that's so broad, and it seems you're helping, like, the whole person. You're not just not worried, but concerned about one area or the other, and getting that feedback after they kind of get through the process, and you getting that feedback that this was very helpful, and that kind of, I'm sure, validates the work that you do. And if there's any tweaks, then that's a great way. So getting feedback, I think some people think it's like, oh, they're just going to say something negative in these reviews, and so that's big. And I think that's important, no matter what business. If somebody has their own business, or if they work with a larger business and they're just a part of it, that is the work that I'm doing matter. And so, emotional side of that, how does that make you feel when you get that feedback? Like the work you do, what gets you up in the morning, and what keeps you going?
Yeah, and you're 100% right. asking for feedback is painful for a lot of people because, and I am one of those people that I don't have a very thick skin, so I take a lot of things personally. But I've learned over the years, and actually one of my colleagues, she's great at reminding me, it's not personal. When we ask for this kind of feedback, it's helping us do our job better and support kids and families better in the next cycle. And so we solicit feedback from, we survey our students midway through their senior year. Okay. So we know not only how it went, but how it went so far, because we do have time to still, if there's things that they feel like they could really use some extra support with, we want to be able to do that. So we survey them at the mid-year point, and then at the end of the year, we survey parents and students, and how did it go? Even things like, was our communication enough? Was it too much? Were there things that you felt were too opaque? Were there things that we knocked out of the park? I mean, that's the thing. Feedback can also be great, and one of the things I always love to share is that when we do that mid-year survey of our seniors, my favorite response, and it has been this way since we've been doing this survey for years, is that the one question that we get the highest rating on every single year from the mid-year survey from students is when they have to affirm, there's a list of statements and they have to affirm which ones are accurate for them. And the one that gets the highest is the statement, "I'm proud of the work I submitted." Oh. And for me, that's a huge win. It's not, I got into, this, stellar school. It's, I'm proud of what I did. And that's and for some of these kids, they haven't gotten any decisions back yet. So it's keeping that light lit in them, because a negative decision, if they're not accepted somewhere, can dim that really quickly or blow it all the way out. And so I like that we can capture it in the moment that they've just done it, because that's the reality. They should be proud. They've put a lot of work into it, not just the application process, all the time leading up to that, that's what the application basically encapsulates, is like what they've done up to that point. It's not just a single moment in time. And so I love that. So for me, yes, so there is some, we have implemented some feedback we've gotten in the past where maybe something, a great thing, example is we had a communication tool that we were using, and we were sending out these messages, and we thought, this is really good information for families. And we realized no one was watching these pieces of information. And so as painful as that was for us, because we thought it was fantastic, we realized, okay, we have to pivot. We have to do something different. So let's figure out what is going to work and what is going to be actually something that's going to be valuable for the families, because we're putting a lot of effort into this. And if you don't ask for feedback, you're going to keep putting effort into things that maybe don't make any difference at all. So
it's so true. Yeah. And you want to spend the time, because there's only a certain amount of time in each day, and the the load that each person in the organization, that there's just, it just comes down to there's only a certain amount of time, and you don't want to spend a ton of time on something and then go, oh wow, for the last period of time, we were, not that we were doing things wrong, but what we thought, and I know exactly how that feels. It's like, this is the best thing, and then it's like, oh man, maybe let's try to work around that. And I think that's crucial for anybody, and no matter where they're at in life, is find out what they're doing. Is it mattering, and to the people that they're working with, does it matter to them, or should there be a change in focus?
Yep, absolutely.
Wow. Just very eye-opening. So what are some of the tests, standardized tests? I don't know if they still have them. I think they do. I hate standardized tests, and my daughter in kindergarten, they're doing testing this week, and I just oh my gosh, my daughter's going through it. I guess what tests are the most common, and how, not you don't have to give specific details, but just in general, somebody's worried, oh my gosh, I'm not, and if they're doing prep and they're not getting answers right consistently, how does that impact a person?
Things have changed so much since COVID. A lot of colleges have become test optional since COVID, and part of that was actually in response to just not being able to test in person. So that was but many of them have decided not to go back to requiring tests. There are some schools that are, I would say, the more selective schools. Most of the Ivy League schools, for example, MIT, they've all gone back to requiring test scores, and that's the ACT or the SAT. And so we just tell students it's kind of a necessary evil for them to take the tests. And we don't encourage anybody to not take them, because they don't necessarily know when they're sitting for those tests, which is usually in junior year, that they don't necessarily know where they'll apply. And it could be that a school that they're applying to requires it. So for example, there are even some states, like the state of Georgia, for example, all of their public institutions have to require the ACT or SAT. So if you're applying to Georgia Tech, University of Georgia, you have to submit a test score. You don't have a choice. And what they do with them, it's up to them. But anyway, so we tell students, start taking these tests. Most students will plateau by their third time taking one of these tests, though. Okay. So I don't tell students go and, just keep testing, keep taking it over and over, especially if they're not doing any prep in between, because if they just keep sitting cold for a test, it's just like a sport. You just can't show up. I mean, like I'm running a 5K on Sunday and haven't been running, but I'm not expecting to PR because I haven't been practicing. It's the same kind of thing. And so I agree with you, though. Like, I'm not a fan of the tests. I understand why they're used, and I get that for some of those schools, why they're reinstating them. But I don't love them because it does cause a lot of stress on kids to do really well. Nationally, the averages range typically between like a 23 and 25 on the ACT, for example. Okay. And I would say for a lot of traditional colleges, like most colleges it's like 80% of colleges accept 50% or more of their applicants. It's the vast majority of colleges are accepting more than half of the applicants, but what we hear about are the really selective schools that are accepting 5, 10, 15% of their applications. For those schools, if a student's applying to one of the more selective colleges, if their ACT score is not in the high 30, if they're not it goes up to 36. If they're not a 34 or higher, it's very unlikely that score is going to mean anything to that school. So it can be a benefit. It can hurt. It can hurt if a student sends a low score to a school and it doesn't match with their grades. Okay. And grade inflation is a real thing right now that colleges are really struggling with, because so many kids have over a 4.0 because of weighting and things like that. It's hard now versus, I know, like when I was applying to colleges, it was up to a 4.0 is what you could get, and you had a test score, and schools would look sometimes at like a matrix test score and ACT, and does that student meet our requirements? So it's a much more complicated process, more holistic now. They're looking at other things too.
Great. Yeah. So we're at the end of our time. Is there anything that we didn't cover? Do you want to share? How could someone get in touch with you and the work that you do? Sure,
yeah. And I think one of the best ways, we have an e-newsletter that goes out every month. It's free, and families can sign up for that on the estrelaconsulting.com website. The other thing is we do webinars every month that are free, and we record them and we put them on our Estrela Consulting YouTube channel. There's a lot of really great content on there. So if someone's just trying to kind of get their feet wet and see what we do, it's a great way to do that. And then we have a free consultation for families. If they're interested in learning more, they can reach out and do an hour consultation with one of our team members to learn more about our processes.
Wow. Thank you so much for
You're
joining
welcome.
us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Support people in the local community, and the work that you do is very, very important. And just want to thank you for sharing time with us today.
Great.
So what we'll do to close the show out, we'll just go through the short prayer that I've learned has been helpful to me. And so it kind of goes like this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Amen. And lastly, I want to share a couple bits of information. So we're talking about a wide variety of topics, as you know, with our show and podcast. So if you or somebody you know has been a victim of trafficking, whether that's sex trafficking, whether that's labor trafficking, reach out to the National Human Trafficking Hotline.org website. It's confidential 24/7. or you can reach them at 1-888-373-7888, TTY711. You can also text at 233-733, and then you can also chat. And then lastly, if you or somebody you know is talking about suicide, going through a mental health crisis, you can reach out to the website 988lifeline.org, and you can also, right, so that's a website, so some of us are a little easier to call or text, so you can call them at 988. You can also text them at 988, and then you can go to their website and you can use the chat feature. So we wanted to start sharing that information. We find that people are interested, and it helps having that transcript and in a lot of different ways. So thank you for joining us for this episode. I want to thank our in-studio guest, Kristina Dooley, Estrela Consulting. Check it out. And until next time, please be a voice for you or somebody in need.